So, hello there everyone and welcome, it is Niran here, and today it is time for me to bring you another video looking forward towards FIFA 19, and today we're going to be looking at features that I would love to see implemented into FIFA 19, career mode especially. Now, obviously we've talked about multiple things that could be added to FIFA 19 career mode. It's a game mode that seems so raw, like untouched relatively speaking in comparison to what it could actually be. Well, today we're going to be taking a look at specific Football Manager features that could be stolen by FIFA and put into FIFA 19 career mode to make that game mode so much better. And trust me, there are some really good ones. 12 in total in this video, but I'm sure if you guys wanted to, I can make a second version of this one. If you want to enjoy this video though, slap a like on it, and of course subscribe if you're new to the channel. Let's though get into the features, starting off now with a better transfer system and more realistic transfers. And it sounds easy on the face of it, but Football Manager has a really good transfer system and it's very good at sort of gauging the actual frequency of transfers in real life and how they really work. I think one thing that FIFA lacks on, although it has a decent frequency of transfers now in comparison to old FIFAs, you know, you get 5 or 6 seasons down the line and teams will have completely different squads pretty much. A lot of them are still scripted, and a lot of them don't seem to make too much sense. You know, you get 5 seasons into a career mode save and suddenly Everton and West Ham are 5-star teams, and it's almost like every single team becomes ridiculously good. It's quite a difficult one to explain. And on top of that, when it comes to teams getting promoted and relegated, transfers don't really seem to make much sense there either, whereas in Football Manager, if a team gets relegated, their best player will leave that team, whereas it just doesn't happen on FIFA. Almost the return of transfer sagas that were a bit more, because this was actually an old FIFAs, that transfer sagas that rumbled on for quite some time has seemed to have dropped out a bit of FIFA. You'll get someone say they want to leave and then the board will make the decision for you, but they seem to be more like sagas back in the day, and they were also more common as well, so I'd like to see a return of that. Online network games is obviously one huge one. I did do a sort of concept video on an online career mode on FIFA 19. If you haven't seen that, there'll be an annotation in the top right of the screen. But being able to play career modes with your friends and saves with your friends and your mates and whoever you've got on Xbox or PlayStation would be absolutely insane, like you can do on PC. If I'm going to be brutally honest with you, I know it would be almost an entirely new game mode, but it is not something beyond the realms of possibility. A bit of a nerdy one, this one, but I completely agree with it, and the tracking of stats across seasons would be absolutely awesome, in my opinion. I know, obviously, overall and potential really dominates FIFA career mode, although I'll get onto that in a moment. Being able to see the actual stats of players before you sign them across various seasons would add a little bit more. So if you know a player's coming in having scored 20 goals in the last 2 seasons rather than just being, from what you can tell, decent this season, that would be, you know, that would maybe add to the reason why you're going to sign them, and hopefully then that form would improve how they play under you. I will talk about it in a little bit more detail later, but obviously that would require being able to see the stats of other domestic leagues as well, which is another thing you can't do on FIFA. Number 4, we've got better depth and impact of morale. I mean, what does morale actually do? Apart from it just being a player not playing that often and then deciding they want to leave when that happens and when their contract isn't fulfilled, what does morale actually do? It doesn't really have any storylines particularly behind it either. Obviously on Football Manager you can have situations where a player doesn't feel part of the social group within the squad and then decides to leave on that basis rather than just the fact they're not getting much game time. I don't feel like there's too much depth, and a lot of it is storyline based. I think there's a lot of depth lacking when it comes to the storylines that you can have in FIFA, and a better and more in-depth impact of morale I think would be a welcome addition to career mode. As with point number 5, this is player interaction. Obviously you do get emails from your players saying, you know, suggesting that they want to play, they're in good form, they want to be a part of the squad, or they're not getting enough game time, or they're having doubts as to whether they're going to sign a new contract. But you can't obviously reply to them, and what would be great would be to actually be able to explain why I'm not playing you, why I'm not going to play you for this next game, why you're down on the pecking order, but explaining that that will change in the future, or just being able to talk to your players and interact with them about certain things. If you want your older goalkeeper to give some mentoring to one of the younger youth academy goalkeepers, you should be able to interact with them and tell them to do that, because it is really frustrating when a player says, I'm not getting enough game time, boss, and you know you can't give it to them for this one season. If I was able to reply and say, look, you won't get much game time this year, but next year you're going to be a key part of the squad, and then they could either reject that or accept that, then that would make things so much easier. I'll keep it brief really here because it's something I've talked about in another concept video before, before, but stadium customization is a huge part of Football Manager as well, and it would prevent situations where you're doing a Road to Glory career mode with, say, Wimbledon, like I am, or a League 2 side, or whatever, reaching the Premier League, reaching the Champions League, and you've still got a 5,000 max capacity stadium. It's just unrealistic and makes no sense. So being able to at least customize the default stadiums, even if it's not the real life stadiums, that might require a lot of licensing, but even if it means just being able to customize the default made up EA stadiums that won't require any licensing, that would make so much more sense, and it would just be great for career mode. Team cohesion and chemistry is massive as far as Football Manager is concerned. It's the 7th point in this video. I personally have always wanted there to be some sort of chemistry factor in career mode, and then obviously that means that you've got to be a bit more savvy with your signings. You can't just go out and buy an entirely new squad because they'll just play worse because they won't have any cohesion whatsoever. They're all playing with each other for the first time. It would just make it really good if you had some sort of chemistry system where if players were playing in the same formation, they would play better because they're used to that formation, or they're playing with the same personnel, they'd start to grow cohesion and chemistry between players in that side. Equally, if there's a controversial member of the team, for example, like a Mario Balotelli or whatever, that might decrease the cohesion as well, and that would just add more factors to players you're going to sign, players you're going to keep, and players you're going to bring up maybe through youth academies if they have the trait of being affecting cohesion negatively or, of course, positively as well. Youth teams, under 19s, under 21s, under 23s that are manageable are, of course, a key feature as well of Football Manager. Obviously, you have your own youth academy in career mode, but then once they are promoted from the youth academy, that's it. They're just flung into the senior side. You have your under 21 sides, you have your B teams, and you have your under 21 leagues as well. And on Football Manager, you can go and view them, you can get scout reports from them, you can get reports into how well those players are doing, how well they're going to fit into your side, how they're developing. It could just easily be put into FIFA, even if you can't watch the games. Even if you just get a literal squad rating report at the end of every match and a little bit of a rating from a scout or from your under 21 manager as to who's doing well, who's scored most goals across the season, all that sort of stuff, and then you know who's actually performing well, who deserves to be promoted, rather than just letting 16-year-olds waste away on the bench without getting any game time at all. It could actually help their growth as well playing in under 21 sides. Deeper interviews and more meaningful ones are the ones on FIFA might as well just not exist. They make absolutely no difference whatsoever. All you can do is praise your team, motivate your team, and then unsettle your opponents. I mean, what is the point? You don't even get questions. It obviously exists in the journey, so it should be easy realistically to convert interviews in press conferences or otherwise at the end of games into manager mode as well. I touched upon it earlier, but being able to see stats, fixtures, and maybe even watch games from other leagues as well. If you want to watch a player that you've got on your shortlist and see how he actually plays on the game and see what type of player he actually is without having to use him first, you should be able to go and scout that player, or at least be able to get the stats and a detailed scout report into that player, what their strengths and weaknesses are. And as I mentioned, yes, getting stats. If they've scored 20 goals a season twice in a row, you should know that realistically before you sign them, and it's a key feature of Football Manager. That game obviously tracks the stats and average ratings and everything you want to know about a player throughout their entire career, rather than just a season-on-season basis like on career mode on FIFA. A better development system without guaranteed potentials is something I would love to see as well. I think potentials are far too predictable. You can just go on FIFA and check out who's going to be good in your career mode saves. If you have a version of reality where Mbappe or team gets a bad injury and never really reaches the heights, maybe gets to 82 or 83 overall, and then that's it, that could be completely different to someone who then has another save where Mbappe or team is potentially the greatest player of all time. I think fixed potentials are, although a relatively decent idea, and maybe they should have a bracket, maybe give or take 5, I think having a set number that every single player will always get to is just far too predictable. And it also means that the development would be based on different factors. You know, the amount of game time a player is getting, the amount of support that players are getting in training, maybe how good your backroom staff are, how good your coaches are, will then affect the development of your side. And then finally, more detailed clauses in terms of transfers, stuff like obligated transfers or obligated signings after loan deals, buyback clauses and stuff. FIFA have at least gone semi in detail with these in the sense of sell-on clauses and bonuses and all sorts of stuff, which is quite good. I like that. I think that came in for this FIFA or last FIFA, can't quite remember, but I think it needs to still be developed a little bit upon, and I think they could take some advice from Football Manager in doing so. That though is going to wrap up the 12 things that I think FIFA should steal basically from Football Manager and implement into FIFA 19 career mode. If you've got any more, drop them down in the comment section below, because I might well make a part 2 of this video. But if you enjoyed this one, then slap a like on it, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and you can also follow me on social media these days. My Twitter handle is @theofficialfng, and my Instagram is exactly the same. Links are down below. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a great day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.